on them.
I'm going to give you a story.
Stay there. We're back in 1 minute. Short segment coming up, then long segment. Get into the tyranny of the euro taking over England, and then we'll get into the global warming.
Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Lord Christopher Monckton is our guest for the rest of the hour. Then Max Kaiser with big breaking news. Lord Monckton, we're going to shift gears into the globalist battle plan, how we defeat them. But for those that don't know, this is a global standardized model. They're trying to do the same stuff. First, it's terror. They say they'll disappear you. We have a Bill of Rights. They're just ignoring it with the NDAA. But for those that don't know, first they start this National Anti-Terror Group. Now they admit it's for everybody. They can just disappear you. I've seen them spying on members of parliament that are trying to rein them in and then raiding them.
That's right.
I mean, these are
not so long ago.
This is real tyranny when the bureaucracy does this. We're going to put their website on screen. Tell folks about it.
And the immensely feeble Speaker of the House did not stop them coming in. There could have been an order made, don't you think about it, mate. But no, they went along with it. It was absolutely outrageous. This happened a year or two ago now. And this secret police force is completely out of it. They came after me once. This was terribly funny. And I complained about them because they had not the slightest basis for coming after me. And I put in a formal complaint about it. And they sent 2 policemen up to our estate in Scotland to interview me about it. And they went away and they produced a report saying that they had tried to interview me under caution. That means they suspect you of a criminal offence, which in fact they didn't. And that I had fled to my residence in northern Cyprus. This was put in the report of the people I had asked to investigate my complaint from the secret police. So I hit the roof. I thought there's no point in messing around anymore.
It's a culture of total lying.
What they'd done was they'd put this report about because they wanted to show to ministers who had become interested in the way I'd been treated that I was a crook. That was the aim. And so I then thought, right, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I walked into my nearest magistrate's court, which was Horseferry Road in London. I was in London at the time. I told them the story. I said, this is what's happened. I have never had any residence in northern Cyprus, nor have I fled there. I have been in and out of London quite openly from my residence in southern Cyprus, which is part of the EU, for heaven's sake. They could come there and get me anytime they wanted. And I've been openly in and out of London, and there's absolutely no basis for what they've written here. And I want these people to be summoned to answer a charge of willful misfeasance in a public office, which is a very serious charge for which you can go to prison for life. I said, I want them to be brought here to court to answer my charges. So the magistrates recessed for half an hour to read the paperwork. They came back in and they said, Mr. Monckton, this was a few years ago before I was a lord, they said, Mr. Monckton, we've read the paperwork. We do not intend to hear you because we are going to order the secret police to appear. We are going to summon them as you have requested next week. So 3 days passed, and this was a great victory because 99% of cases in the magistrate's court lead to convictions. So I had reversed their usual ratio. Now they were in the frame. They were in danger of being convicted of a very serious criminal offence, which would have led them to being in prison, perhaps for life. The secret police, the head of the secret police. So I got them to come to court, and what they tried to do was they got in touch with the clerk of the court and they said, can you just lose the paperwork that said that Monckton was ever there?
More criminality.
So the clerk of the court, I rang him 3 days after I'd had the hearing. I said, I haven't had any confirmation paper to say that this case has been set down for a hearing. And the clerk of the court said, you were never here. I said, just one moment. I've only just rung you. You haven't had a chance to check any of your records, and yet you already knew or were willing to say that I hadn't been here.
Now you're involved in the crime.
I said, has somebody been getting at you? Because I think they have. I said, look, I wasn't born yesterday. I know just how criminal this country has now become, how even court clerks at Horseferry Road magistrates can find themselves drawn in to this corruption of the secret.
Stay there. I want to recap the story and finish it on the other side.
Okay.
Come back. This is demonstrating the police state of the EU. That's what you're under.
Yeah.
What, 80+% of your laws are now made by these unelected bureaucrats.
5/6.
Wow. We're going to come back, break this down, and then get into their plan for global domination with Lord Christopher Monckton. Then I'm going to give the phone number out.
Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
We have launched the long promoted and vaunted liberty social network for you to get together and form resistance to the globalist. It's planetinfowars.com. And again, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition of the Worldwide Broadcast. Lord Christopher Monckton is our guest in studio for the full hour. If you have questions or comments specifically for Lord Christopher Monckton, who is the greatest champion out there fighting the globalist authoritarian takeover system of fake environmentalism, the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, specifically on this issue. 800-259-9231. And you get into EU tyranny, habeas corpus, any of those issues, but also the whole global warming fraud, how they're being routed. And Lord Monckton, this is a big deal. I want to get into how routed they are, but how they're planning to counter-strike, what's coming up with the new Agenda 21 20-year anniversary meeting. Yep. But to look at the tyranny of Europe,
what I want to do is...
and the secret police.
I was telling.
Yeah, finish the story, because some stations don't carry that last segment, that little 5-minute, about what you've experienced with the secret police.
Yeah. Now, you may find it surprising there is such a thing as a secret police in Britain, but we do have one. Now, it was founded by the Labour government in 1998. It was then called the National Crime Squad, then it became the Serious Organised Crime Agency, and next month it's going to be called the Crime Agency. These people came after me and some clients of mine on a totally spurious trumped-up charge. And because they behaved so badly, I made an official complaint about them, which unfortunately was conducted internally by them rather than externally by somebody.
And they put out a report saying that you had fled when you had.
That's right. They said I'd fled the country when they had asked to interview me under caution. I hadn't fled the country. I had been openly there, in and out of my place I then lived in southern Cyprus, part of the EU. The northern Turkish bit, they said I'd fled to my residence in Turkish northern Cyprus. I don't have a residence. I never have had. I've only been there once. And so the whole thing, and that was on a parliamentary delegation 25 years ago, so the whole thing was trumped up. And I got them into the magistrate's court. I went straight to the magistrate's court. I said, I'm telling my own story. I'm not even going to hire a lawyer. They've behaved so badly. I reckon I can tell the magistrates and they will find in my favour. And they said, yes, we are ordering the secret police to come to court next week and answer the charges. So 3 days later, when I rang the court and said, why haven't I had confirmation that this hearing is on next week? The clerk of the court immediately said, you were never here. I said, hang on a moment, you haven't had a chance to check your records. Have you done a deal with the secret police to erase all record of the magistrate's finding? I guess that's what you've done. I said, let me tell you this. I will have you for conspiracy with the secret police to pervert the course of justice unless within 5 minutes you find this record you say never existed. Because, let me make this clear, I know your sort. I know I can't trust even the bureaucrats in court anymore. I can trust the magistrates because they are not part of the network. They're ordinary people like you or me who do the judging. They're not even lawyers. But I said, you court clerks, you get into bed with the police, and I know how corrupt you all are together. And I had witnesses in the court. I had a barrister there who was part of another case. I had somebody sitting in the public gallery. I had a journalist there. We had 3 separate witnesses who saw me there and saw the magistrate and took a shorthand note of his finding. So you find that paperwork within 5 minutes and ring me back and tell me you found it, or you go to jail, mate. I'm not going to have this messing around. 4 minutes later, he came back and said, we found the paperwork. I said, yes, I rather thought you had. Now, I don't expect any further interference with this case. Do I make myself clear? And you are yourself not to appear as the clerk in the case. I want a different clerk.
Recuse yourself.
Yeah, he was just a clerk. The clerk, you would call it, sitting underneath the bench and doing the legal bit. The clerks are legally trained, the magistrates are not.
And again, you have members of parliament being threatened and raided by the bureaucracy. You've been... I was just mentioning what I'd read, and it's happened to you.
Yeah,
this is the secret police.
Let me tell you what then happened. I went to court. 5 of the secret police, plus a barrister, turned up. And I did a deal with them. I said, look, we can do this the hard way and go into court, and the magistrates, essentially, having summoned you here, are going to find against you. Because you've behaved very badly. You've done this so as to try to make it out to ministers that I'm a crook. And that's disgraceful, particularly when I had put in a complaint about the previous disgraceful conduct of this organisation. And I said, this is not acceptable. I want a letter of apology from the head of the secret police containing an undertaking that you will all leave me alone from here on. And I got it. No argument whatsoever. They just caved in and said, okay. And they got off my case.
You're about the only person I know that's brought them to heel. Instead, as you mentioned, even the Speaker of the Commons is scared of them.
That's right. But the next thing that happened, it happened just a few weeks ago, this is real breaking news, is that I got an email from somebody calling himself Dr. Paul McCallum. And he said that he had a company and he wanted to develop an invention of mine, the Eternity Puzzle, which has sold 1 million copies worldwide. He said, I want to develop it further, and I have some ideas, and can we...
Yeah, you're a big inventor. We should add that. You're really interesting.
Yeah, so he came and had a drink at my club, and he made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, and I made him sign one, usual kind of business exchange. But I read his non-disclosure agreement, and it contained a clause saying nothing in this agreement shall waive the liability of either party for fraud. Now, that is not a standard term in a non-disclosure agreement. That had been put there because this was, in fact, the Internal Revenue Service, the Inland Revenue, trying to get information about my private financial affairs to see if they could find a way back in, because they were with the secret.
They're sending spies after you.
They sent a spy. His name was Dr. Paul McCallum. And he has a company called Daibutsu Limited. And Daibutsu Limited is a front company set up by the Inland Revenue. It hasn't traded, or if it has...
And for those that don't know, that's your IRS.
That's the IRS. That's right. It's the Internal Revenue Service. And this was quite clearly an attempt by the IRS to find information from it. Now, of course, I spotted this.
And again, they're politically after you, and everybody knows you're squeaky clean.
That's it. And in fact, they did have, and I must be very honest here, some justification for asking some questions, which, if they'd been honest, they would have lifted the phone and just asked me. I owed them some tax, in fact, on this invention, because I'd had a large royalty payment. And they knew this because my partners had all paid tax on it, so they knew roughly how much I should have paid. And they hadn't had the money. And instead of asking why they hadn't had the money, they go through this hole and corner nonsense. What had happened was I had said to my lovely wife, look, we must pay this. Can you please fix it with the bank? She handles all my transactions.
No, I understand. There's always mistakes.
And no, there was no mistakes on our part.
The bank didn't.
The bank got it wrong. We instructed the bank. The instruction was made out properly. The bank accepted the instruction. It said it had made the payment. My lovely wife, who's very thorough about these things, rang them the next day and said, did you make the payment? And they said, yes. And then it turned out that, in fact, they hadn't.
But the point is, they're going over you with a fine-tooth comb.
Well, yes, and what these creeps then did is they set up this hole-in-corner operation. Now, in fact, this is a rogue unit within the Inland Revenue. It's called the Cross-Cutting Services Unit. These are the people, and we are slowly encircling them. We're going to get them eventually. And some of their people are going to go to jail because they've been after me and some of my clients for years without the slightest justification.
And they finally, watching the records, found one little thing and raced in like piranha.
Yes, all they found was that the tax that we thought we'd paid hadn't been paid. And instead of checking with us, and we would have said to the bank, what happened to the money? And the bank has now...
No, I had a property tax thing where the county deposited it, but sent me notice they were going to start taking my property. Yeah. And I had to go get the check and go in, and they don't apologize. No. I had my registration sent to me, misprinted, wrong, where it printed it off. So I stuck the sticker on my car, but there's no print. Get pulled over, the cop goes, that's a fraudulent sticker. And I reached to my glove partner and I go, this is how it was mailed by the state. It printed it up here. Here it is. You want me to put this piece of paper on the front of my car? And the point is the government is constantly making mistakes.
This was not just a mistake. This was a deliberate attempt to obtain information from me by deception. It was a criminal offence. So, Dr. Paul McCallum, if I have got you wrong in this respect, then I'm going to say this to you. I will apologise. I'll come back on this show and apologise to you. So you have the chance now to get in touch with me and say, you've completely misunderstood me, I was being genuine, and you've got me wrong. If that is the case, you get in touch with me. I will get in touch with Alex Jones, and Alex will give me the freedom, I'm sure you will, to say, okay, I eat crow, I got it wrong.